What's up? And welcome back to the Rational Farid. Alright, hot take. The God of the Old Testament, the big booming voice, the guy with the beard, the one who's supposedly all knowing and all powerful. Yeah, he's basically a fictional character that's a mashup of two different older gods. No cap. It's like if a studio bought the rights to both Batman and Superman and just decided to merge them into one character called Superbat and hope nobody would notice. This isn't some out of pocket conspiracy theory. This is what the actual historical and textual evidence shows. The god your grandma prays to is a divine fusion dance, and today we're gonna break down how this holy Franken god was made. Let's get into it. So, before we talk about God with a capital G, you gotta meet El. Think of El as the CEO of the ancient Canaanite Pantheon. We're talking Bronze Age vibes. He was the head honcho, the big boss, the primordial father figure. He was the wise old king who sat on his throne in the sky, chilled with his council of other gods, and was generally seen as the creator of, well, everything. He was their Zeus, their Odin, their top G, and here's the kicker that usually gets left out of Sunday school. El had a wife. Her name was Asherah, and she was a major goddess in her own right, the queen of heaven. Um, so, yeah, the original god had a goddess wife. They were the ultimate power couple. Now, why does this matter? Because the early Israelites, they were literally just Canaanites. They lived in Canaan, they had Canaanite culture, and shocker, they worshipped Canaanite gods. Their main guy was El. The name they gave their own people, Israel, literally means one who wrestles with El. His name is baked right into their identity. They were Team El from the jump. So, if everyone was vibing with El, where the heck did Yahweh come from? Yahweh was a totally different dude. He wasn't the calm celestial CEO, he was a god of storms, mountains, and war. The evidence suggests he originated somewhere south of Canaan in places called Edom or Midian. He was more aggressive, more intense, and most importantly, a jealous god. He wasn't about sharing the spotlight. To use our corporate analogy again, if El was the established CEO, Yahweh was the ambitious, hungry startup founder who wanted to hostilely take over the whole market. He was cooking, and El's company was on the menu. Yahweh doesn't even properly show up in the story until the time of Moses. That whole scene at the burning bush where God says, I am who I am, that was Yahweh's big dramatic entrance. He was introducing himself as the new protector of the Israelites. So now you have two gods, El, the old established king, and Yahweh, the new fiery warrior god. For a while, the Israelites kind of worshipped both. But a new radical group emerged among them, the Yahweh-alone party. These guys were hardcore Yahweh Sims, and they started a centuries long campaign to make Yahweh the one and only God. This led to a process called syncretism. For those who only know regular person words, it's basically when you take two different things and smoosh them into one, like a cronut, but with deities. The Yahweh-alone crew, who were mostly priests and scribes, started a massive rebranding project. They began attributing all of El's best qualities to Yahweh. El was the creator of the cosmos. Nah, that was Yahweh now. El presided over the divine council. Bet Yahweh does that too. El was the wise, fatherly king. Let's just copy paste those character traits onto Yahweh's profile. They finessed Yahweh into the top spot by slowly writing El out of the picture and giving Yahweh a divine promotion. But here's the thing about editing a bunch of ancient texts written by different people over hundreds of years. You're gonna miss a few spots. The biblical writers basically forgot to run a final find and replace, and they left behind a ton of clues. First, the names. Ever wonder why the Bible sometimes calls God Elohim, a name derived from El, and other times Yahweh, often translated in English Bibles as the Lord in all caps. It's because you're reading documents from different sources that got stitched together. One writer called him Elohim, another called him Yahweh. But the most out of pocket, legit, crazy piece of evidence comes from Deuteronomy 32:8, -9. Now, modern Bibles have changed the wording, but if you look at the oldest manuscripts, like the ones from the Dead Sea Scrolls, it says this: When Elion, a title for El, meaning Most High, apportioned the nations, he fixed the boundaries of the peoples according to the number of the sons of God. Yahweh's portion was his people, Jacob his allotted heritage. Read that again. This is the smoking gun. It literally shows El as the big boss, dividing up the world among his sons, and Yahweh gets Israel as his assignment. Yahweh isn't the Most High God here. He's a mid-level manager reporting to the CEO El. This verse is an ancient fossil preserved in the text that shows the original Pantheon before the merger. It's jit crazy. Even the famous golden calf story makes more sense now. Why would they build a golden bull to worship? Because the bull was El's sacred animal symbol. That story is pure propaganda from the Yahweh-only party, dissing the followers of the old god El. By the time the Israelite elites were exiled to Babylon around 586 BCE, the Yahweh-alone party had basically won. They used this time to edit, compile, and finalize their religious texts, what we now call the Old Testament. The merger was complete. They took El's status and combined it with Yahweh's name and jealous, warlike personality. They also had to deal with El's wife, Asherah. So, what did they do? They demoted her from Queen of Heaven to a pagan idol and wrote stories about righteous kings smashing her sacred poles and altars. Talk about a messy, out of pocket divine divorce. And that's how we got the monotheistic God of modern Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. He's not some singular eternal being who's been the same forever. He's a composite character, a theological cut and shot job, a divine Voltron assembled from the spare parts of an older, much larger pantheon. So, the next time someone talks about the God of the Old Testament, you can low-key smile, knowing the wild, messy corporate drama that went into creating him. Anyway, that's gonna cost you 1 subscribe. Thanks for the support.